I am your host, Blake Hardison. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Hiding in the Dark. With me tonight, I guess I should say, I have an old friend of mine. We actually used to go to Cravens Elementary together. Shout out Cravens Elementary, just right around the corner from it right now. And we also went to 5-6 Owensboro Middle School together. I'm pretty sure he graduated from Owensboro as well. I ended up switching to Apollo. But always a devil. And he is also running for mayor. He is going to be, expressing his thoughts and opinions with us tonight. And I'm very pleased to have here with me, Dracin Williams.
Thank you for having me, young sir. I appreciate the invite.
My man. How you doing, my man?
I can't complain. Life is good. Trying to make it through this quarantine life. It's going good.
Man, just trying to work on some projects I've been working on, including this podcast. I do want to appreciate you coming in, my man.
Thank you. I'm always down to support any type of creative venture, especially of all my local Owensboro, and shout out to all the creatives around here.
We really need a group for, the local creators, honestly.
I agree. There's so much creative, spirit here, but it's everybody's off doing their own thing. Mm-hmm. And, especially different rappers. I be seeing people been sharing their mixtapes with me. And, we need to tap into that because I feel there's so many artists here, but they're all doing their own different thing.
Yeah. And I feel if for the most part, if everybody got together, they would actually support each other.
Oh, definitely. I agree.
Owensboro is a really good, supportive city for creative things for the most part.
Oh, I agree. And I think especially a lot of creatives, first off, when you're an artist, you try to hold tight to what you have anyways. Mm-hmm. And since this is a small town, you kind of nervous that people might not, support it. But I think for the most part, just what I've seen recently, especially, put it out there and people, more than likely, more people will support you than you think. So, especially with our local, artists, I feel let's link up.
Oh, absolutely. We might have to actually get something working on that.
Oh, definitely.
Once you get done with everything else that's keeping you busy, we could definitely start getting something like that together.
Definitely. We need it right now.
We definitely do, especially in the quarantine time. It definitely could have helped.
Exactly. This is a creative moment right now. So many people, when you're in the house, you can't do nothing but be creative. So this is the moment.
That's true. So, you're running for mayor.
Yes, sir.
Man, how's that been going for you so far?
It's been going good. It's a lot better than expected.
Okay, that's what I like to hear.
Yeah, definitely a lot better than expected. Because over the past year, I've been thinking about it. I've been reading, learning, and then when I finally moved back, I was like, oh God, should I do it? What's people gonna say?
Mm-hmm. Kind of like a creator being scared to share this
stuff.
Exactly.
And so at one point I was like, man, just do it. You've been reading the data. You've been talking to people. The only thing left is to get the application, get the signatures, and file, and then announce it. And so it was hard, but I was like, hop in the race.
Hey, absolutely, my man. We were just talking earlier. We don't try, we do.
Facts.
I know you said you listened to the one with Bruce, which is a really good episode to listen to. He dropped a lot of good knowledge for some people. When you get a chance, check out the one with Sean from Clutch.
Uh-huh.
He talks about, and me and him actually talk about taking that extra step that makes you uncomfortable.
Right.
He actually, right before we had started, he got a really big phone call on something he's been working on for a very long time. Before we got started. And he was like, this makes me uncomfortable.
Right.
But it was a huge moment for him.
Yeah, and that's the only way to grow. It's if you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing. Mm-hmm. So, you got to push through it, but you got to do it. If you plan to go to the next level, then you got to push through it. And, you got to look for them uncomfortable moments. And this was definitely an uncomfortable moment, but it's been way better than expected.
That's what's up, man. What would you say so far has been the hardest thing that you've had to go through?
In terms of the campaign?
Yeah, or like even just like speaking with people, just in general.
Right, so the hardest thing has been, honestly, to convince people to be engaged, if that makes any sense, or the importance of being engaged, because in Owensboro for so long, we haven't really been engaged in the political process, or even, in my opinion, in like the community building, the civic part of society. Mm-hmm. And I think that's because like the people who we elect didn't make it a priority to engage the community. And I think over time, people just, it's just how it's going to be, know? And I think, especially in small towns, it's like, we get everything last. You don't really see much change until it's changing for the worse. And you just don't really see the importance of, being engaged in pushing back against like different policies, or even advocating for different things. And so convincing people that, we do need change, and change can happen in a time when things rarely change. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's to put it in a creative standpoint, I mean, it's kind of like, getting people to read your stuff, to listen to your stuff.
Right.
You're trying to make a change in that person's life, and you're like, yo, if like this affects you if you let it.
Right.
Like, and especially in politics, it's gonna get to you regardless.
Right. And that's exactly what I try to tell people about, people say, it's like this cool thing to say, I hate politics. But politics is personal. Like,
absolutely.
And so and that's one thing that I've been learning just over time, is like, politics is about where you live, the conditions of your house, the water you're able to drink, who lives next to you.
Man.
And so, you can hate the part of politics that is like, that doesn't allow for a positive change in your life. Like, I get that, but you can't hate politics, because the moment you hate politics, someone's going to benefit from that. And most of the time, it's not going to be poor, working, or barely middle-class families. It's going to be the rich people at the top, the people who control all of the decision-making process, who are going to benefit from you just opting out of the process altogether.
Yeah.
And so, and I think people are realizing that more and more at a federal level. And hopefully I've been able, or I'm, showing people that, even at a local level, the decisions that they make in City Hall affect you in some way.
Absolutely. And, I would like to say I stay out of politics, like, especially on social media.
Right.
But I would just be lying to myself.
Right.
I would just
it's kind of hard to do right
especially
now, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody's so shoved up in their TVs, their phones, because they ain't got shit to do.
Right.
It's really hard to kind of like to an extent of what you're saying, kind of be like, I don't really care what they do.
Right.
Now everybody has a point.
Yeah.
And it's just like, and I feel like it's being misconstrued by all news. Not one news.
Oh, definitely.
All fucking news.
Yeah, and it's like, so I'm not really a sports type of guy. And so I hate like team, not that I hate it, but I've never really been like, choose a team and then rep that team, support them to the fullest. And I feel like that's what politics is now. It's like, you choose your team, and no matter what, you gotta make sure you convince other people that your team is right. And it's like, that's not how it works when you are a unified, I say the air quotes, unified nation or a community. Like, you cannot be a nation and choose a team, and then when, depending on who loses or who wins, there's losers, and who loses, you know what I'm saying? And so I think that's so much of our politics now is like, you should not feel like if the candidate you support loses, that you are also a loser. And you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so that's one thing that I like, you know, because I get a lot of pushback because I go hard at any candidate, Democrat, Republican. I'm a registered independent for the fact that, you know, I think the way forward is not going to be teams. Like, you Americans or Owensboroans choosing teams, and then you getting behind it, and then you feeling like you won or lost, and then that being your thought process versus like, look, we have two good choices. You know, no matter who wins or loses, we are still a part of the same country, same community. They might approach solutions or problems in a different way, but I'm not going to lose. And I feel like so many people feel like they're going to lose this November at a federal level that, you know, it's kind of sad for real.
Do you think that might be because of, like, and I'm not just speaking of these candidates, but of, like, the candidates that are brought up to us for the most part in these elections?
Oh, definitely. I think every... Here we better get into it.
Good, that's what we
So I think every federal election is about harm reduction at this point. You know, it's about choosing the lesser of two evils. And I'm like, wait, why are we okay with this cycle? Like, you're choosing the lesser of two evils. That means that a good amount of people are going to be hurt in the process. And it's sad, but that's like what I think, in my opinion, personally, that's what this upcoming election is all about. It's like, who do you think will do less harm to the nation? And I'm like, that is a horrible, horrible choice to make. And you know that at the end of 4 years, you're going to be left with little to no change, in my opinion, because it's all about harm reduction. It, you know, because at the end of the day, the rich have gotten richer under Democrats and Republicans.
Absolutely.
And so the only people who's going to be harmed in the process are the people who's working, the people who's struggling to maintain middle class status, or poor people. You know, I'm just tired of like that being the cycle. At one point, we're going to have to change. And until we get out of this like partisan politics, it's going to be elections about harm reduction and not like, you know, imagining a future where everyone's able to succeed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's, I think it comes to a point where, like, you have to be so old to run as a president, you know?
Right.
I think you should have you can only be this old to also run as a president. You know?
Yeah. Okay, so I go back and forth because I get what you're saying, but then it's like, trust the people to choose their best representative. You know what I'm saying?
And then I would also go back to what I said is, like, think about the candidates we have been given in the past 2-3 elections.
Yeah. No, definitely. But I feel like that's a coordinated effort between the parties because, you know, I think about like there was this guy who became president who wasn't really known on the national level. He was doing work in Chicago, and just out of the blue, not that I don't like this guy who became the first black president, but it's like this man came out of the blue, and you understand, just as I learn more about just politics in general, you understand like each party identifies like a certain person to like who they believe will meet the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it isn't like choice of the people. Like they like no one knew President Obama, and somehow he, as a state representative, he was able to rise up on a national level, and that's because someone in the Democratic Party identified him and helped to give him like a national platform. And it happens all the time. Either you are the son of a president, and so we're really not choosing. Like, we're choosing who we want to run our country, but they really give us the options.
Yeah. Like, we get the top three for the most
part. Right.
Like, we get top three Democrat, we get top three Republican, and then you have your one or two independent that might do a little dent, then take some votes from somebody.
Right.
But not for the most part. So you get maybe 8 out of a candidacy of 100.
Right.
You know?
Right. No, I agree. And, we just got a lot of changes we got to make before this is like a country of and by or for, whatever they say, by the people. You know what I'm saying? Like, we just, there's so much money controlling all of this that until we figure out a way to get that out of it and start getting back to the basics, I don't feel like much is going to change. Like, each president is going to do just a little bit to say that they did something, and then the rich are still going to get richer.
Yeah.
And as long as that happens, like, I don't care the little bit you do, they are getting more and more powerful, which means they're controlling a lot of the process in general, whether it's out in the open or not. And so I don't know. And so that's why I'm like, Democrat, Republican, very different, but too much the same.
Now, I think I said this the other day. I don't remember where I was at. I think I was talking to my pops, but we were out somewhere. I was out somewhere with somebody, and I opened the door for somebody. I did something,
right?
Just out of the ordinary, and and I was like, I think people forget that we're just fucking people.
Right.
Like,
right.
it's not black, it's not white, it's not Republican, it's not Democrat. Like, we are all living human fucking beings.
Right.
Like, there's no reason we should treat anybody any different for party affiliation, race, sex, any of that fucking reason. Because we're all just trying to fucking figure out what the fuck we're doing anyway.
Right. And it's just that simple, and it's so complex. I don't really, I try to just see life as simple anyways, but then you understand, like, because if you're so tied to like these, like the world as it is now, you're going to be less likely to be willing to sort of like question the reason race as like a social construct is a thing. Or even, in my opinion, like, I question everything. Like, even the idea of gender outside of like your biology, like the role. It's because to me it just becomes like, who created it and why? And for the most part, it wasn't for this great reason. It was a lot to sort of like put people in different boxes, and then to create like these roles around what you can and should do in a society. And a lot of the times it wasn't the people, it wasn't like the black people who got a say in what the construction of race would mean for them. It wasn't women who got to say what the idea of gender was going to mean for them. And so if someone else is creating something for me without my input, and I know, or I can assume that whatever you create may not benefit me much. And so I'm constantly questioning everything. And I think more people are And I think that's the only way to really sort of like dismantle systems, but also to start to like imagine something different. Like, cause I can imagine, like, my imagination's like crazy. And so like, and I think that's the only way that's like, and as someone who's running to be a mayor and anybody in politics, I feel like if you don't have an imagination of the world, not as it is, but as you hope it can be, then I think you will get bogged down. And, but that's you have to be able to imagine that what this is right now, because it's total chaos. It's like chaos right now. And so you got to be able to imagine something different, and then that keeps you moving forward. Because if I couldn't imagine a world where people wasn't starving, where, we weren't still, where my niece may not have to wake up and hear about another black man shot down in the streets, black woman shot down in the streets. Like, I have to imagine something different or I will go crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I don't have kids, but if you think about, like, somebody that has kids, if you're a parent, I would assume for the most part, if you're have the mental capacity to be a functioning human adult that has a child. Right. You just want to leave the world better for your child than what it was for when they came in. Right. And I feel like that's how politicians should be. You should look at the common people, the constituents. Right. As your kids. Right. So, my question to you is, say you have somebody that's like you, wants to get into, the lower governments, maybe move up. Definitely. Has that high energy, wants to change. Is there a chance that whenever they get so high, like, have you ever seen Black Mirror? The show Black Mirror on Netflix? Yeah. There's an episode on there where, they're all riding bikes and they get, like, points or whatever, and they can buy stuff with their points. Well, if you get so many points, you can buy a ticket to go to this, like, American Idol type thing. And you can, if they like you, you can go off and do big, great things. Right. But, so a girl did that, got so big, blah, 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 sold out to be a porn star. No way. Like, they were like, oh, you're great. And the dude was like, I like you a lot better like this. I think you can make me a lot of money by doing all this nasty shit. And so she sold out to be a porn star. So my question is, do you think that once people get so high with high energy, I'm not saying you, but people that are just that, could they get so high to where the money starts fueling into their pockets and they get bought out?
Oh, definitely.
Because I feel like there's a lot of people that started out that wanted to make change, and then they're like, you know what, shit ain't that really all that bad.
Right. And yeah, because, like, I try to understand where somebody would come from, and because it only makes sense for, when you're making a certain amount of money, that becomes your lifestyle, and so your bills also just like, you may get a home, like a mortgage, and so then your life becomes, you have to make a living at that point. And so you're not willing to do anything that is going to risk you losing any of that. Yeah. And so I get, like, how they sort of, like, lose the fight or to, like, start to focus on other things. But I think it's a question of, like, what is most important? You know what I'm saying? Because I remember being like, like probably 15, and like saying to myself, this is after I would watch like award shows and I would read like biographies and stuff, and I'm like, I'm going to have to get comfortable with going so high. Yeah. Does that make sense? And so, like, and over time, like, that's why I can make do I moved to Chicago. I was working a AmeriCorps job making $12,000. And I had the time of my life. Mm-hmm. And so, I've sort of just like told myself, like, there's going to be a certain height that that you may not be able to reach because, to get to the next height sometimes requires you to sell out. And I'm not that guy. Yeah. I'm just, I can live, I can make the best of anything, but there's no way I can sit with myself if I know I've sold out.
Yeah, I feel you.
And so, and I remember telling myself that at like 15, like, okay, like by that point I was like speaking some truths to teachers and stuff. And so I realized, I'm like, get comfortable with like, at one point you may reach your height and you might have to get comfortable there because the next level in our current society may require you to sell out a few things or not fight as hard. Yeah. And that's just not what I'm willing to do. Man. Hey. But I can say that now because I don't have kids, but I don't think I can't sell out. I'm just not that guy.
And I'm not saying you, but I wonder how many people that did do that said that, bro.
I guarantee. I know.
Does that make you a little scared? Or is
the truth. So I'm always conscious of like I'm constantly talking to myself like since I've become like have started running for mayor, I will talk to different people who will give me advice. And so there will be some advice where depending on the person, I'm like, okay, like coming from you, I appreciate that. And I can understand that you're telling me that there's a certain thing that I'm going to have to change a little bit in order to sort of appeal to somebody, like how you may change the way you talk or something like that. Yeah. But there'll be some advice coming from that I've heard from certain people who are currently in our government who it's like, oh, like, is that what, like, it made me nervous because I'm like, when you're in it, it's easier to be on the outside and say what you wouldn't do. But it makes me real nervous to be on the inside of anything and to be caught in the whirlwind of all of that and to try to not only stay sane and focused, but to stay like true and committed to like what you said you were going to do. And, and that's why, like, I'm really self-reflective. And I think that's one of, like, growing up, it wasn't like I would overthink everything. So I was like, I got to get out of this. Yeah. But now it's like I'm constantly thinking about, like, what I'm saying, the decisions. And so I think that would benefit me in order to stay true, is that I'm analyzing, like, different aspects of myself or different decisions in order to make sure it aligns with my priorities. So but it's definitely, and I imagine people said that the people at the very top right now, like I think about Jay-Z, who, like, in my opinion, has kind of sold out a little bit.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's part of the Illuminati. What you talking about?
That's what I'm saying. And, like, he's a billionaire, and I'm like, but how do you sleep at night? Are you sleeping good?
He sleep. I'm sure.
I bet you the bed is real comfortable,
I'm
though.
sure he sleeps like a baby, but, because he's probably already past that point. Now, first it probably didn't, but once that money came in, Beyonce came in, and, like, come on now. Like, he's sleeping like a baby now. Yeah. But back then, he was probably having some problems.
Dang.
I know.
That's got, I'm cool. I ain't never been money hungry. Yeah. I don't need the nicest shoes. None of that. And so maybe it's just what I'm telling myself in order to.
Yeah.
But no, but I really don't. Like I don't need none of that. And so, God, but yeah, hopefully that'll save you, keep you sane and keep you from being over, you can be overly ambitious. Like, there's this whole thing like ambition, ambition, ambition. Yeah, be ambitious, but if all you're focused on is climbing a ladder, you gotta do some real self work.
Absolutely. So, a question that I've been meaning to ask was like, you were talking about like all this change that's going on, or that should be going on, like the lower level governments and stuff like that. With you running for mayor, do you think that like you could be that change, at least in Owensboro?
Yeah, definitely. And so I definitely understand. So a part of like why I'm running is because I feel like the change is going to come from all of us being engaged in the process.
Okay.
And so, I can say, do I believe that I can be a part of the change that is going to come when all of us engage in the process? Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely.
Okay. Humbleness.
No, like
okay.
But a part of it is like, the idea of a good leader is that you're bringing people in and teaching them how not only to advocate with you for certain issues, mm-hmm. but also to pressure you and keep you accountable. And so I think the business as usual politics is we vote somebody in, you never hear from them again. They run it how they run it. They are the leader. But I think right now we move into, a new politics that is like people-centered, community-centered, and it's going to require communities of people to be engaged. And so maybe that's hopeful. Maybe that's too hopeful.
Ain't no such thing.
Right. I feel that. Mm-hmm. But it's necessary. Like if we want to start, a society, start creating and building better connected communities, new policy that is people centered. It's never going to come from one leader. Like I think for so long especially at the federal level, we look back at, we sit back and watch Donald Trump. We sit back and watched Obama, and we thought that they were going to do it all for us. And I think people are, over the past few years have realized, no, it's going to take, if this politician creates or pushes through this policy that you disagree with, that you are in the streets, that you are calling your senator, those type of things. That's what you have to do, especially if you want to maintain, a government by and for the people. Mm-hmm. The people have to be engaged in the process, or else, it's a government by and for the elite controlling power class. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so there's a reason why we've seen the rich get richer. It's because for far too long, we've looked to one leader to try to hold them accountable when it should have been the people that said, no, man, like woman, no, man, or woman, one day woman, they, whatever. It's it's time to represent our interests again. And if you ain't going to do it, we're going to hold your feet to the fire until you figure out how to get, start shifting some of our priorities back to working people, poor people, because the way it's going, I don't think we can continue down this route for too much longer.
Yeah.
Like people are struggling. That's when, while I was living in Chicago, I graduated from Western, came back here, worked for a year, and then moved to Chicago. And, you feel something in Chicago. Like there's a struggle, there's joy, but there's a struggle in Chicago that is like unlike anything that I ever known coming from Owensboro. And then I would come back here like monthly, and then I would see more people, like people without homes holding signs on the corner, and I'm like, and it would be more and more people. Then you would see more and more people who are clearly struggling either with addiction or mental illness. And I'm like, what? I'm looking around as I'm coming back, like, I'm coming from Chicago back to my hometown.
Yeah.
And what is going on here? Like, because there was things that was like, oh, no, like, I ain't seen that, like, in Owensboro?
Yeah, especially if you left and came back, you would be like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, and so there, like, I didn't even recognize certain things, and I'm like, we have to figure out some things, you know, because Owensboro, you know, people will criticize it for a whole lot of reasons, but I think what we've managed to maintain over a certain amount of time is a sense of like community. Now, can we be more connected? Definitely. But there's something about a small town, smaller towns that you don't want to lose.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I would go into Chicago and I wouldn't lock my door and people was like, wait, what is that? Like, you are not in Owensboro, Kentucky anymore.
And you can't do it nowadays either.
No. And so, you kind of, because I got nieces and nephews who I'm like, there was a beauty in that. Like, where you didn't think that someone would run into your house and steal from you. Or, you knew your neighbor.
Yeah.
And I think we've gotten so disconnected from that, because all my, like, we need change.
Yeah.
There is a part of, like, the old that I love, and like,
it's called nostalgia.
Yeah. Like, because I be in it sometimes. I'm like, you talking about change, but like, you remember when you knew your next door neighbor, when you didn't have to think about, or you didn't have to necessarily feel so sad for the people you knew who were struggling with like so many young people struggling with addiction and all of those things. Like, there was a part, and I'm sure it was happening, maybe not to the, maybe it's just that I'm more aware, but, there was a sense that like something was like we were losing something and not replacing it with something better.
I got you.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Absolutely. Let me tell you what I feel like this city is doing, because as you know, I live on the west end of town. Not the best end of town.
West side.
Always. And I love living on the west side, but it's just not what it used to be, like you were saying. However, what I feel like the people that are in there now are doing is, I feel like the west side is becoming like an east side St. Louis. They're trying to push it away and push everything out to the east side. And, this will be like the hood, like I said, the east side St. Louis.
Right.
And I don't fucking like that at all. We're, like, this is a part of the town.
Right. And, so I was reading something that, like, our current mayor was like, we have to expand our tax base, which is why you see, like, there's been such a focus on expanding 54, because we're kind of locked in as, like, a county city. And so there's not far you can expand. And so, like, there's been a priority to build up 54, because you understand that there's certain like, you can't go too much further, like, south. And so, like, that's why they've focused so much on building that, because it's like, we have to expand, make more money, increase our revenue. But in all the research I've been reading, even when they decided to start building up 54, they were saying, like, there was research that was saying that it may not be the best decision, that you will probably see that your area on Frederica, like where the mall is, will probably die out, because you'll be pulling some of those locations out 54, which is what we're seeing.
That's exactly what's happening.
Yeah, you will see like other areas not benefit because the main advantages in terms of you want to open up a business, not like a small business, but like a chain, then you would want to be on 54 because there's a lot of advantages, breaks that you get when you're on 54. And so it's like you sacrificed a part of the city in order to make this part more successful. And then there's no plan to help anybody who's on the west side.
Absolutely.
And so that's like the terrible part. And then they don't, and I'm sure they're great people. I feel like I need to say that. But there's not even like they hear it. We've been saying it, and it's like, we'll continue. Like, we don't really have to answer to y'all. But it's like, there's not much on the west side.
No.
And if we expand more out that way, we will be this will be the outskirts of town.
Absolutely. And if you really think about it, and this is what bothers me the fucking most, is if you think about people coming from Indiana for the most part, whether you come in via Henderson or via Rio, you're still coming in on the west fucking side.
Right.
Like, so how does it look when you come in from Henderson or the Audubon Parkway and you drive down West 4th Street until you get to 54?
Right. And I always have, so I'm a history major.
Okay.
And I'm always, kind of skeptical of this idea of annexation, like pulling more property in because you're trying to expand, because a lot of the times your need to expand is not necessarily beneficial for the people who you think it's going to be. I think about Manifest Destiny. There were people out there whose land it was, but it was, we felt like we just had this need to expand. And I heard this, I remember in Owensboro Times reading this story. So I think a couple years ago, the city, in their quest to expand, annexed certain Davis County public schools, and so the teachers would be paying more in taxes. And our current leaders went through with that, even after the teachers and the educators was pushing back, like, no, we cannot, like, we do not agree with this.
Well, no, we're not even getting paid enough as of the most part. Now we're having to pay more taxes.
Right. And I remember reading this story. I think, you can check it out on Owensboro Times, but I believe the guy's last name was Lowe or something. And he was, I believe, struggling with cancer. And
is he a teacher?
He was some sort of staff member in the school, one of the schools. And he was like, I can't, they're doing this. They went through with this, and I cannot afford to pay both city and county tax, or have city and county taxes coming out of my check. And so I thought about that, and I'm like, this is what it means to be so focused on revenue and annexing property into the city that you miss, like, how it's going to impact people. And that's what our politics, that is the politics of the now and of the future, hopefully, is one that considers, like, how will my decisions affect people? And if it's not going to affect them in a positive way, but it's going to affect you at your city, I think sometimes you gotta make a tough decision about, can I make do? Can I make do with, whether that means restructuring, whether that means spending less? But sometimes you gotta make do. The goal, there's a struggle when the goal is always to grow. That it affects, like, the people. And, I just want us to move more towards a people-centered politics where people actually feels like there's somebody listening, like they're engaged in the decision-making process.
Yeah.
That if they say something that their concerns are heard,
Yeah. Now, as somebody that is, running for mayor, what would you say are probably some of your, I guess you would say, like, best ideas or popular ideas? Things that have gotten you more popular among the people?
Yeah, so I've been talking about a debt-free community college education, right? Because right now we only have 22% of our local community that has a bachelor's degree. And given how competitive it's going to be to get, the jobs of the future, or it's going to be so important that when they look at Owensboro, that they're not going to have to think about outsourcing a lot of their labor, because so many of the jobs now are not manufacturing, because unfortunately, because of federal, the decisions of who we elect to represent us in Washington D.C. A lot of those jobs are gone overseas, and it's going to be, and what I'm reading, it's going to be so difficult to get a lot of those jobs back. So a lot of the jobs is like tech, and it's we have research that is going on here around like how to use plants as medicines and things. And so, but like when they look at Owensboro, they're going to have to be like, there's a highly educated population here, and unfortunately 22% is really not that high, like no. 2 in 10 people.
Yeah, that's not impressive.
And so we're going to have to do better with that, and I think we can definitely make it happen. And I think about the energy it adds, like so many people leave here to go off to school, or because they just don't, this isn't where the opportunities are. Like, yeah. I have to leave from here as soon as possible. And so a part of my, like, why I think it's important to focus on education is that, it'll give young people the opportunity to stick around the 2 years. And hopefully in those 2 years, we've done enough to convince you that you should stay here, that you can grow here. Mm-hmm. But if not, you go off, you learn more, and then you come back, and then you help us build. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people have definitely been interested in that. I also believe that we need more women, and I've been talking about we need more women represented in our local government, on our boards, and things like that, because women make up like 52% of the demographics in Owensboro.
I can believe it.
52%. And first off, we've never had a female mayor. And I was like, oh, God, like the patriarchy. No, I'm playing.
No, I'll say with me and Stefan, when we had our podcast, he was talking about like, not in a wrong way. He was like, but, for the most part, I believe guys should only hang out with guys. And me being me, I have a bunch of friends that are females, like strictly friends.
Like all my friends, all my closest friends is female.
It adds such a different perspective. Like they bring in a perspective that you don't even ever think about.
Right.
So just like having a new perspective on things is always refreshing, I believe.
Yeah, definitely. And especially, so if women make up majority of the population, there's also like a certain understanding that many of them have about like what the needs are of the community, and if they're not included in like on the local boards or things like that, then maybe we're missing out on like how we address the needs of the people. But like shout out to all the because all my I'm not into sports. Like,
Yeah.
I ain't really been, like, I have brothers. Like, those is only probably my closest guy friends. The rest has been women, and, you know, but that's why I think, like, I have a view even of politics in the way that I do. It's because they, you know, I don't know, they had an understanding about the world that was like real, like, but it had like a certain lens to it about how I care for people, and also like an understanding of like the barriers that I'm gonna have to climb over or tear down because I am a woman. And so I think just listening to those conversations over time has helped me even to be a little bit more radical in like the ideas that I have and like the possibilities, because, you know, because I've had conversations with them, and I want them to be able to have those opportunities, and it not be because they are women, you know what I'm saying? But them not be axed out because they are women.
Yeah. People forget that, like, women are strong, like, for sure. They have to go through a lot of stuff. You know, especially now in the day and age where, for the most part, like, if you're a female walking in the dark to somewhere, like, you have to be on your P's and Q's.
Oh, man.
And to live in a world like that is really fucking disgusting.
Yeah.
But, you know, and then they also have that just nurturing, like, you know, that motherly touch for the most part.
Yeah.
You know, not every female has it, but for the most part, they just have that. It's like back in from the caveman era.
Yeah.
You know, just in that, or cave woman era.
Yeah.
You know, so transitioning from women to kind of like politics, it's not really a huge transition. However, are you in favor of marijuana legalization?
It only makes sense.
Okay.
Like,
okay.
it don't, like, you know, and that's why I'd be like, there'd be so much thought around things that's not even really about the thing, but it's about what you think of the thing.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, you know, if you get rid of that, it's like, what's the big deal?
Like the old propaganda?
Yeah, like,
do you know, like, have you done any research? I know you said that you're like a history buff and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Do you know why marijuana was illegal?
No,
because
tell me.
Some guy was about to lose his job. And so he came up with this whole marijuana illegalization, and, you know, came out with the movies back in the day. It was like, you know, the blacks get all crazy and rape our wives, and Latinos want to go out and kill people, and like all this fake propaganda. And it all stemmed from back then. It's all a fucked situation. And now we're into an era to where we can't even use it to make paper. We can't use hemp to make, you know, almost plastic, you know, anything. And we can't take state revenue and put it back into our communities because it is a substance one controlled drug.
Oh, yeah.
You know, how fucking crazy is that? California made $1 million in their first 24 hours that it was legalized.
Well, and then I think about all the people who have been like put in jails because for possessing marijuana. It's like, this don't
comes from the earth.
Yeah, it's like, this don't really make, like, just let go. But that's what I'd be like, imagine that, like, being able to, so like being in a place like Kentucky struggling.
Yeah.
But you would think that struggle will help us to imagine more. But really, it's like, I think so often we are like less imaginative and more like we are more restrictive of ourselves when we really don't got the time to be like having this debate around marijuana when we, you know, we're like number one for child abuse, number one for senior food insecurities, which means we're allowing seniors to starve here. It's like, you need to make some decisions ASAP, and it shouldn't be wrapped up in like these old school cultural propaganda.
Man.
It's like let's just move on.
And this would be the perfect time to start.
Oh, definitely.
Perfect time to start.
Definitely.
In a drought era where we're losing money. Kentucky can't even afford to lose any more money as it is.
Right.
So that's being 95% of who we're voting into DC via the state government.
Right.
AKA Ditch Mitch fucking McConnell.
Right. No, I agree. Thinking about Mitch, this is how desperate Kentuckians be. Like, I've never seen or heard anyone made like an affirmative case for Mitch McConnell. But I talked to this one guy and he made a good point. He was like, man, I don't really like Mitch McConnell, but I'm going to support him because Kentucky doesn't have time to build back up power. And I was like, that makes a lot of sense when you think about it, because given who we are, given like the status of Kentucky, you're talking about there's this man who is he's probably the most powerful politician in the nation right now.
Yeah.
In the nation and world, because America is so powerful. And he also represents Kentucky. And I think that's one of the terrible parts is like they make you so desperate that you don't even want to think about like
Starting from ground zero.
Yeah. Like, can you imagine? And so I never thought about it like that because I'm like, take the risk. But I'm like, it makes a lot of sense. You talking about have to be, because Mitch McConnell will throw us a few bones every now and then around election time.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's all we'll get. But I'm like, if we vote somebody else in, and I'm all for voting somebody else in, like you take the risk, you build back up. But God, people are struggling here, and it's like, they don't want to take a risk and have to be without even more than what they already are.
But the better question is, does having all that power even matter if you're not doing anything with it?
True.
They can have all the power that they want, but if they're doing the wrong fucking things, which I would believe that 75 to 80% of fucking Kentucky agrees that Mitch is doing the wrong fucking things, but then what does it fucking matter?
Right.
Get somebody in there that will do. I mean, Mitch McConnell is like, what, 75, 80 years goddamn old?
Yeah.
Like, something's got to shake, bro.
Right. And I was just thinking about the other day, like, we have one of the most powerful leaders in Mitch McConnell, and Kentucky is still so invisible on a national level. Like,
and poor.
Like, how does that even happen? Like, what does it benefit us for you to be the leader if no one still, like, people still going to think we walking around with barefoot, which I rarely put on shoes. I ain't got on socks right now, but but like, it should benefit us something if you are powerful. Like, you got poor. That's what I'm saying. Like,
they ain't poor.
Mitch McConnell is like, dang, he's a millionaire worth millions of dollars.
Yeah, that's fucking crazy, bro. If I made millions of dollars a year, like politicians, I don't know if he does specifically, I'd definitely get that thing underneath my throat taken care of. Whatever he's got. You know what I'm saying? I would definitely
the little gobble thing. Like, I can't even concentrate when I watch him.
Somebody, I think it was the, I want to say it was like the principal or assistant principal at 5-6 Center.
Yeah.
He used to have the gobble. Me and my homies used to clown on him back in the day. But,
I feel you on that. Dang, if I had $1 million, I don't know what I'm gonna look like.
Right.
I ain't gonna look like this. Nah, I'm playing.
Well, I appreciate you coming on here, my man.
Man, I appreciate it.
Definitely sharing, your views, what you want to do differently, how you want to listen to the people. You definitely got my vote.
Appreciate
I believe that you can at least be the voice for the people that can make a change. I know you don't want to make a change, but you can believe that the people can. And, I already had read some of your stuff. We hadn't, probably even spoken years, before all this, but I kept up with all your stuff that you was going, doing with. And I I like everything that I see. I appreciate everything that you've done trying to get out to the people. I've seen that. And you won my vote over from that. However, coming here, speaking to me, hearing you, what you want to do, how you view things, makes me realize that you're a really good, down to earth, humble human being
Definitely.
that just wants to make things better for your common person.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I love Owensboro. I love it. So, like, when you love something, somebody, you gotta be of service. So that's what I hope to do.
One quick question before we head out. Do you have a chance to win?
So definitely, what you mean? Yeah,
that's what I want to hear.
Definitely. Like when I tell you, there's been way more support than what I thought it was gonna be. Yeah, there's been people calling me recently. It's like telling me like their little circles is vote for some circles that you're like, oh really?
Yeah.
And so it's been good, but for me, there's no loss because I don't think it's all like if I thought it was all about me and like nobody was going to be follow up and there was not going to be nobody even in 4 more years, then I would like, oh, that's a loss. But I'm like, we bit it, sometimes you just building something.
Yeah.
And if you don't get the votes you need, don't take it as a loss, but you were building something together. That's what it looks like to be a community. Be engaged in radical imagination.
Yep.
So that's what we doing.
Well,
but yeah, I believe.
That's what's up, man.
I will win in November 3rd. Register to vote. All of those things. Number 4. I was chosen last to be number 1. You hear what I'm saying now.
Hey. Is there one last thing or a couple things you want the people to take away from this conversation that we had?
Yeah, so the main thing, and you can look at my platform online, search Dracin Williams. I got a page, it's Dracin for Mayor. You see, I am affirming that I'm already on the other side. But it's all about, imagining that it could be different, that we can have a community that is way more connected, where there's more people thriving, where people are able to live out their wildest dreams. I know it sounds corny, but I really think about the things like
There's
this.
Nothing wrong with that,
That there's less struggle and more thriving, and where kids are playing. I just, I imagine like kids playing in the streets again, like because they're not so fearful that this person is going to, like, there's this scary person on the outside. Like kids are playing in the streets. Like my grandma sits on, it's safe to sit on the front porch. You know what I'm saying? There's so many things like and sometimes I can't verbalize it, but I'm like, it just looks like us being a community again. And I think, when you're struggling when there's so many people struggling, you lose sight of like your neighbor being a person you should get to know, or stopping the kid on the corner and asking like, what is your name? Who are you kin to? Like, that's the best part about being in a small town. It's like, who you kin to? Like, doing certain things again and also doing different things.
Yeah.
And so like, this November, but we have clear choices. Like, if it's worked for you for 4, 8 years, there are 3 other candidates who you could vote for. And because it's worked for you. But if you imagine something different, if seeing homeless people without homes on every corner is like something that hits you at your heart, let's move a little different. Let's see if we can elect Dracin Williams for mayor, and let's have a people-centered politics that actually puts people at the center. And, that's what because I want government to work for people so that people can finally stop saying they hate politics.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, I know I ramble on and on.
Hey, and that's
but
what
at the end of the day, I love Owensboro.
Yeah.
And,
we should have somebody in the mayor's seat that loves Owensboro, though. That should
definitely
never be a fucking problem. We should be proud of the city that, even if you're not from Owensboro and you just live here, you should be proud of the city that you reside in.
Definitely. So, hopefully we can, either way, we're going to make something shake together. So,
absolutely. We don't try, we do.
Yeah, we don't try, we do. Mm-hmm. Hey, I appreciate, yeah. That's right.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That's right.
Absolutely. Well, man, I know that you got my vote. I know that things are going to go as according to plan. We're also going to get this artist community going once everything starts to get back to normal.
We got to.
We got to. I appreciate you again. Thank you for speaking to the people. Thank you for being a man of the people. And I wish you best of luck, my man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Best of luck to you. I'm all down for anybody who's creative, trying to grow and imagine something, because being creative is about imagining something that's not currently here, or, thinking differently about a specific thing or idea. And so I appreciate you for, having me here. Like, you are really doing the thing. Like,
I am.
Me and my little cousin Essence was just shouting you out because, you not playing around with this podcasting thing. So, keep it up. I appreciate you inviting me out.
No problem, man.
Back anytime, man.
After November, we definitely going to have to get you in here when you're the mayor of Owensboro, Kentucky.
Definitely. We having the podcast in the mayor's office.
Shit. That's a go.
In the mayor's office.
That's a go. That's a go. That's a bet.
Right.
That's a bet.
For real. In the mayor's office. That's what we doing.
Stay tuned if this is your first episode listening to Hiding in the Dark, because after November, we will be doing a podcast recorded in the mayor's office of Owensboro, Kentucky.
You heard it here first.
First. All right. Well, there you go. You have it for everybody of all folks in dimensions and universes listening out there. Make sure to vote for Dracin Williams for mayor of Owensboro. If you reside in the city, make sure you go and check out his social platforms if you want to figure out more of his social issues that he wants to work on. If you have any questions, make sure to holler at him, and he will definitely answer them for you to the most part.
You know it.
All right. Thanks again, guys.
All right.
Bye.
Peace.